Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be using DTO pre-flop to go through different ICM scenarios. I haven't yet done a video on this, so I'm not 100% sure what the best way to do it would be. I don't know if I should in the future mark different hands myself. Then we dive into the DTO pre-flop tool and we try and find similar scenarios and we try and see if I got the right answers, or if people would prefer if I would just go through scenarios that arise a lot, start trying to understand how the play will be adjusted on final tables in regards to, in comparison to when we are playing in Chippy V, just in the beginning of the tournaments, the middle stages of the tournaments when there's no, risk premium. So I'm just going to pull up one hand that we played a few days ago. I have not looked at this yet, so I could be about to embarrass myself. I could be about to potentially find out that I played the hand okay. Dom did actually send me a hand which was a similar situation to the hand that we shoved the ace-4 off on the 55 mini bounty builder. People might remember it got opened by me on the button. Big blind re-raised. I 4-bet ripped ace-4 off, and it actually is one of the hands that you use. I might actually start with that because Dom sent me that just to say, it wasn't that much of a disaster, but just to get a feel for how the tool works. I'm then going to go over one hand, and then I'm just going to dive in and look around. I would love if you got to me in the comments and told me if this is how you would like these videos to be done, or if there's something you would prefer to see, because I haven't done much content with this tool yet. I'm going to be doing a video once a week. They're going to be going out on Fridays on my own YouTube at Easy with Aces, and DTO will put them on their YouTube as well. If there's something you want to see, if there's something you would prefer to see less of more, just let me know in the comments and we'll look into it. But this is I'm just going to dive into one hand very quickly that Dom sent me. I haven't looked at this yet. He just replied or sent me a message last night saying look at the 4-bet ripping range versus the 3-bet. The ace-4 was good. So we are going to go to DTO. And this is how the tool looks. So how it works is you'll see the stack setup. You can click here. Sorry, this is to change the spot. As the stacks, it's 60 big blinds in the big blind, 30 big blinds, 80, 10, 20, 20. So this spot's a little bit different. Now, it's a little bit deeper than the spot we had, but as you can see, so how we're going to work here is I was on the button, so we look at the range. We have 80 big blinds versus 10 big blinds. So in general on the button, you're going to be opening at most in Chippy V, I would say approximately 55%. An average of overall stacks is going to be about 50%. Now this will depend on who's in the blinds, it will depend on the stacks you're raising into. But as you can see here, we're opening 74.5%. So we're already opening far more than we would in almost any chip EV situation. Unless, there's two extremely weak players. You really fancy your chances. But in general, you're just not going to see too many situations where you want to open this wide. I mean, we're opening Queen 2 offsuit. That ain't going to happen in chip EV. Almost against anyone in the blinds. We're opening Jack 4 offsuit. We're opening all these these suited deuces. We're opening every pair. I mean, all the pairs will open. But as you can see, so we have an incredibly wide range, right? We have a really, really wide range. We even have some all-ins. Now, this will be quite sensitive. Whilst this will make chips, you can get really messed up if the big blind doesn't call correctly. So, all right, let's just do all-in, right? The big blind. What do you think they're meant to call? It's going to be real tight. There's a 10 big blind stack. I'm going to guess they can't even call ace king. The only reason that I could be wrong about that is because sometimes in these situations, when you will become such a big chip leader, you can call a little bit wider than feels intuitive when you've studied ICM. So if this player had like 25 big blinds and would move up to a 50 big blind stack and would still have less chips than me if they won the pot, I think they have to call even tighter, but maybe here they get to call a little bit wider. So we just have a little look. What did I get to call? Okay, so they can call ace king and kings. All right, so I thought it might just be, I personally thought it might actually be queens plus. I thought it might be queens plus and fold ace king. As we can see, it prefers ace king, I guess, just because we're going to dominate a lot of the shoving range and have such an insane opportunity to be a massive chip leader. So basically what I'm getting at is, when you see this, so let's go back to the button. When you see this range and you see these hands, you'd best be sure that players, if you're gonna, sorry, is that a different range to it was? No, it's not. You best be sure that the players are gonna play back correctly. Anyway, to the spot that actually happened. So we raise, they fold, and then the big blind plays like this. So they're gonna be re-raising. They're gonna have what I feel like pretty intuitive bluffs. These hands are going to be close to break even to defend in this ICM setup. And also they are going to block the range that wants to shove from me. So these are hands we're going to use. And also, you know, if they want to 3-bet call aces, you know, they have to offset it a little bit. So this is the range they use. They are going to go ahead. They're going to make it 8. And then remember little old Finty in the 55. Now, what I will say is in the 55, if your opponent, this is what I said at the time. So I 4-bet shoved in the 55 bounty, and our opponent did call with ace queen. Do you think our opponent should call with ace queen here when they 3-bet from the big blind? They do. Ace queen suited. Ace queen off. Fold. I'm surprised that they call ace queen suited, but again, I think this falls back to the way the stacks are set up. If they call here, they're going to have 120 big blinds, and it's going to be 20, 30, 10, 20, 20. So they're just going to have a monstrous chip lead, and they're going to win the tournament so often, and they're going to dominate a lot of our 4-betting range. But yeah, let's go back again for a moment. So big blind does this. We see the raise. And what range do we use? Remember when little old Finty, the wheels in his head went rolling around, and I was like, I'm pretty sure the hands that we use here are the offsuit ace X if we want to put the pressure on in spots where people are re-raising and calling so incredibly tight. So I felt a little bit silly at the time. And still, it was a $55 incredibly soft tournament. So maybe if we were using a randomizer, instead of the way I would do this, right? The way I would personally simplify this spot, because obviously it's like pure ace deuce, 3/4, half, quarter, a little bit. If you average them out, it's going to be about half. So if you want to randomize this, you could just like do 50-50 for all these hands. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know. And what you want to maybe change is if your opponents are going to really ruin things for you and 3-bet call too wide, these all of a sudden are going to be problematic for you. So if you think that your opponents are playing well, you see Darwin, you see Dom, you see Draftganger, you see whoever pulling the trigger against you, then sure, these are the hands that you use. But maybe in the 55 bounty, it possibly was still a little bit on the punty side. But I can live with it. It happened. On the other hand, I want to look at we're going to go through a few more scenarios, but the other hand that I want to see that I played, let's see, will this pop up on the screen if I do this? Okay, so we're just gonna change for one moment to a different view, because this doesn't look great, and we'll pop back. So this is a hand that I played in the Bounty Builder 215 a couple of days ago. Now I don't know, I haven't looked at this yet, but I'm gonna run a scenario. This is not going to be perfect. DTO are adding more and more situations all the time, and I might be able to find something that suits a little bit better. But just because we're recording this video, I don't want to spend too much time looking. But I'm just going to look at it as if everyone has 30 big blinds. Is that a perfect model? No. I have some ICM pressure with this stack. I'm actually in the middle, so it's not perfect. This player might not open as wide as everyone if they had 30 big blinds. But what I would say, now I don't know if there's anything to this, but I think it oftentimes, if you were going to make like wide steals, I still don't think they should be super wide in this situation. just because there's an opportunity for them to shove, there's an opportunity for this player to shove, there's an opportunity for me to get shorter. But what I would say is that if the big blind's in the small blind, it's the hardest spot for them to mess with you in general. Now, not always, but in general. So they might have a few wider raises. So it falls to us in the big blind, and for my study with these situations, the hands that we want to use are usually hands that are close to break-even calls. And I think King Deuce in this stack setup is pretty close to that. And one thing, the more I look at these sims, is that you're just not meant to put that many chips in passively in a lot of situations. I feel like you make much tighter folds in the big blind. So this is something I haven't looked at yet, and I'm going to dive into it in DTO, and I'm going to see if this was one of the hand classes with King Deuce suited that they like using, or if I made a little bit of an error. So we're going to find something similar. I'm just going to go for 30 big blinds. As you can see, they're adding more and more spots all the time. So we're just going to click ICM. We're going to click 30 big blinds, and there's actually a bunch of them here. This is the one that I'm going to use, but there might be something that suits slightly better. This is actually, is this? No, that won't be it. I'll have a little look. So we are big blind. No. Okay, no. I think the 30 big blinds is going to, everyone having 30 big blinds is going to probably be best. So we click play. The low jack is going to raise. So let's first of all look at this range here. Pretty tight. I mean, it's 21%. It's not that tight. I mean, I don't know if people are going to find these raises in the situation that we just had previously. I don't know if we're going to find all this, but anyway, this is the range that they should be playing when everyone has 30 big blinds. So they raise. We see all folds. I'm in a big blind now. Well, like what I said was, I think that the hands we will use here will be some ace-x and possibly suited kings as our bluffs. What does DTO like using? It doesn't hate it, but it doesn't love it. All right, I was wrong. Look, it's in there a tiny bit. We see queen 3 suited. I had king 2 suited, right? So king 2 suited is not used there, but like this comes in at 4%. Is it something I was going to be doing all the time? No, it wasn't. But I thought these hands would be used a little bit more, but it still sticks. It still kind of sticks to the offsuit ace-x. I wonder if we get deeper, do we start using the hands? Did I get the spot confused a little bit? But it's still an interesting spot to look at and how you should play back. So we go back in here, sorry. This is the range that we're re-raising with. We are raise calling. This is when everyone has 30 big blinds, by the way, right? Everybody has 30 big blinds. And we're still only raise calling half of the time with queens, kings, aces, and ace-king suited plus. These are our bluffs. Okay, so it still uses these offsuit hands. I need to check at a deeper stack depth because I might have got a little bit more confused. Maybe 40, 50 big blinds. We'll look at one in a moment, and we'll see if I've misapplied it or if maybe I just got it completely wrong. And anyway, so go back to the big blind range. What are we calling with? So queens, we want to call. Jacks plus, pure call. Ace queens offsuit, pure call. Ace queen suited, pure call. And this is when there's not a huge amount of ICM pressure, right? There is ICM pressure, but everyone has the same stack. So there's not like a 4 big blind stack or something, but you still can't go getting jacks in. And what are we going all in with? So queens, ace king, we're using these hands as the bluffs, which is usually, you know, these are hands that I think are quite intuitive, and I think most people at this point would be aware of this. But in our spot, we did raise, and they called with eights. Just want to see what is the general play. So they're actually folding at half the time. I think if we were to put our stack setup in where the stacks were, I first of all only had 25 big blinds and there was a 13 big blind stack, I think eights would actually fold a little bit more here. But as you can see, we're never going all in. The value that we're happy with, these hands are, you know, mixing the call, nines is mixing the fold, tens is shoving sometimes. This is something that I would personally Only do against people that you believe are capable. Because some people are just going to have like queens plus in spots where they even shouldn't be pure 3-bet calling queens, but they're just going to have like aces, kings, and queens and no bluffs. And it's just very problematic. But we are trapping with aces half the time. Ace, king is just going to be pure shove, offsuit or suited. And our bluffs are going to come from the same sort of region as their bluffs. These hands just tend to be the hands that we use. So I just want to examine if we move to a deeper stack situation. So if everybody has 40 big blinds, do we now... Do we have everyone with 40 big blinds? Wait. Maybe we don't have that. This is big blind, 20 big blinds, big blind 50. What does low jack have? I'm gonna look at this because it's not the exact same, but I just want to see what do we use now when we can put a bit more pressure on. It still likes the offsuit. All right, so this is why we use this tool, right? This is why we study. I probably was using suited hands a little bit too much, which just probably don't want to 3-bet fold as frequently as I thought. I am going to go look as we get a little bit deeper, but this is the beautiful thing about it. It's just presented in such a nice way to understand. You could just mark hands when you're playing, right? You just mark hands. You mark 25 ICM spots, you pull them out, and you just look in these charts. And if it's something that's happening, right, so let's say I'd use king 4 off here. Even let's say I'd use king 6 off. Is king 6 off, in reality, much different to these hands? It's not. It's not. So if you use that, it's fine. But probably you don't want to be using these hands because none of them even mix the 3-bet. In the last spot, there was a little bit of king 3 suited, but they're not using this here. I actually probably fold these hands versus the open on the final table. The king 7s, the king 6s, the queen 6. Let me see the stack setup again. We are messing this up. Let me just grab this back up again. This is probably not the most efficient way to do this, but was this the one we were big blind 50? So yes, we want to click this. I just want to get the... Why am I not seeing the payouts again? Am I an idiot? I am definitely an idiot. Is it here? No. Ah, what have I done? Okay, now we're in the completely wrong spot. All right, I'm gonna just jump to the slightly deeper stack because I just again I want to see if this is something that I just completely have remembered incorrectly or this one's not really gonna work. So we're gonna see if there's any 60 big blind ones. Let's have a little look. Big blind, 40 big blinds. Button 50, 60. All right, so this would not be too dissimilar. So there's a 5 big blind stack, right? So we're going to be incredibly incentivized not to play big pots here. So it might not work, but we are getting to that stack depth now where we possibly want to have a little bit more playability post. So I'm just going to look at this one again. As you can see, the payouts are 1920, 1430, 1060, and 790. And we are going to be in the big blind versus the most aggressive open. I want to just check what we will see happen in the big blind. Do we see any of these king X suited hands, or have I just completely got it wrong? Again, a small bit, but you know, not a small bit of this, a small bit of this, a small bit of this. It's only a very small bit. So yes, it is in there. It was probably not a terrible play by me, but maybe not the best, and we should still stick to more of these offsuit combos. There's obviously a little bit more playability with the suited variations, and given the fact that this button open is just going to be an absolute obnoxiously wide open, as you can see here. Oh, it's only 61%. I actually thought this would have been wider. I'm a little bit surprised that that is only 61%, given that there's a 5 big blind stack. I guess maybe the stack is just a little bit closer. Maybe if this player had 100 big blinds, it would open a lot more. But even then, they're going to open up pretty much all the suited hands. Some players will open every single one of these hands. So when we flat like the hands such as King X suited, Queen X suited, that I might have flicked in with the 3s, 4s, and 5s as bluffs occasionally. We have a chance to, you know, flush our opponent and win a very, very large pot and become the chip leader. So this is kind of just how I would go over this tool. The headphones just turned off because I have no music on. And I just pick different spots and I just try to find patterns that you will see all the time. If you go through these spots on the regular, you will begin, which is something I need to do more, because ICM, in my opinion, is probably the area that people are messing up the most. The area where people are just giving away money, myself included. It is a very tricky, difficult concept to grasp. And oftentimes, if you start running your own sims, you might not put in the best outputs. And if you put in the wrong outputs, you're going to get bad answers. You are going to get bad answers. Luckily, if you use these sims, if you go through DTO, you will not have to worry about your inputs. You will just have to worry about trying to notice the patterns and trying to take this information into the real games. And, you know, when the money matters most. I mean, I got Scoop coming up next week. The final table that I won last year, I made some horrendous plays that were just shockingly bad. Luckily, I ran well, but I punted off a serious amount of equity. So I'm going to make it part of my daily routine that I'm going to study these spots all of the time. And as a team, we are going to try to get better. I'm going to look at one more. What's a common scenario? So let's just hit ICM. 25 big blinds. Let's just look how wide you can open when you're opening into a shoving stack. This is a very common situation, right? So it's small blind is 50 big blinds, big blind is 40 big blinds, the cutoff is 20, and you're on the button, right? So as you can see this situation, shortest stack, once they fold, you are now opening into 2 stacks that can shove on you. You also have to worry about this situation. So remember we talked about having potentially on average a 50% button open in chip EV. Thereabouts. It will depend on the situation, like we mentioned. How wide do you think we open in this situation? And which hands do you think we shove? Because we are going to get punished a very reasonable amount by the big blind in particular, I'd say, once the small blind folds. But the small blind can mess with us too. So the truth is, I don't know the answer. If you start guessing percentages here before you open them, you will start to learn it. Any of the seminars that I attend, when you have a guess and you just feel more interactive. It's like it's better than just passively just opening it and not thinking about it at all. So we're going to click here and we're down to 26% on the button. We are down to 26% on the button. That is really tight. And this is why if you don't study ICM and you just know chip EV situations, you are going to get murked. You are going to get messed around with. King 3 suited, forget about it. 4s, forget about it. As you can see, there is no all-ins. I thought there might be occasional all-ins with some stuff like ace 5 suited, ace 4 suited. I probably wouldn't do it in game because I wouldn't be sure about it, and it would be quite a costly error if we got it wrong. But look at this: ace 7, forget it. Ace 6, forget it. King 9 offsuit, see you later. 10 7 suited, jack 7 suited, 10 9. These are all gone. You just do not get to open them. So when we do raise and we see a fold from the small blind, how wide can the big blind punish us versus our open? How wide can they go all in? They're going to 3-bet a decent chunk. So what are we bluffing with? The usual suspects: the offsuit ace x hands, the offsuit kings, the offsuit queens. This region, this little bottom left region, is going to be a lot of your bluffs. So are you going to be able to remember to mix queen 5, queen 4? No. But if you look at these situations, again, look at the average. I actually kind of prefer the bar to the pie. As you can see, this probably averages out half. So if you have these hands, you just open a little randomizer, randomnumber.org, 50%. If it's higher, you go with it. If it's lower, you don't. If you're one of those psychopaths, by the way, if you roll in game and the aggressive action is the lower number, you crazy, and I don't want you near me. But as you can see, these hands are going to mix as the bluffs. These hands are going to be, this is going to be the 3-bet call range. 10 deuce suited is not a hand that I would ever use, so that's quite interesting. I'm not sure exactly why, but yeah. Again, patterns. Notice the patterns. Where are we using? What spots are we going to take advantage where we can open? And then the hands that we just go all in with is going to be this region, which most people in game will just click call. Most people will just click call. This is actually somewhat surprising to me in one way, because if we look, it is against a button open, but we're obviously tightening up a lot. And if we do shove here, so excuse me, we go all in, and then we look at this range. It is very condensed pairs. Of course, we do have ace queen, ace jack suited, ace tens mixing. This again, these are the kind of hands that I would mix, depending on the player. If I thought they were really tight, I would make some pretty big folds. But that's what I guess if you still have ace jack plus, that's why the pairs are going to perform reasonably well. But there is some situations where you just don't get to shove those small pairs that feel kind of intuitive, but because the calling range, let's say if this calling range, was 10s plus, all of a sudden you don't want to be shoving deuces, threes, and fours. You want to be using hands like ace 4, ace 5, etc. that will perform reasonably well and block the top of the calling range. But yeah, for me, it's just all about diving in, trying to find different patterns, trying to notice things that come up again and again and again, because that is what will happen. Is poker a complicated game? Yes. Does poker have patterns that come up time and time again? Yes. Does it have little heuristics that you can just take, you can just use and use as almost like a mental cheat sheet, so that you're not going to think like the bot? It's impossible to remember every single little spot. It's just impossible. Nobody thinks like that. Maybe Dom thinks like that. I don't know. Maybe some people can. Bowie's in the chat. Bowie probably thinks like that. Bowie probably knows every percentage down to a T. But we can't all be like that. So what I would say is, mark hands, open up DTO preflop, go over them, and try and notice patterns. And what you will find is some spots will just blow your mind, where you're like, I never do that. And it is something that happens all of the time. But that is anyway how I use this tool to study, and how I will continue to use this tool to study, and I will hopefully get better at ICM, because it is where all the money is made in poker, and I think it's where the most mistakes are probably still made in poker. If you have any questions in the chat, if you have any questions, please get me in the comments. I will be streaming live this week on easydays.tv, and we will be trying to use this tool more and more, because I just think it's invaluable. I think it's a great way to learn ICM. And if there's anything you would like to see, let me know. I'll be back next Friday with another DTO. We'll go post-flop next week, actually. We'll do a post-flop video next week. Just let me know which one you prefer. But yeah, talk to you then.